Hey there, welcome to The Hot Slice, the weekly podcast brought to you by Pizza Today magazine. I'm your host, Jeremy White, editor-in-chief of Pizza Today, joined today by none other than the one, the only, Miss Denise Greer. What's up, Denise?
Why, hello, Jeremy.
Hello.
Hello.
You're gonna have to
So,
bear with me today. After 2.5 years of somehow, some way escaping COVID, it hit me hard the last
yeah,
week and a half, and my voice is not quite back to par yet.
yeah.
So
And I will say, I have still escaped it, knock on wood over
you
here.
shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, I'm gonna jinx myself, but it's okay. Even if I get it now, I'm okay. It'll be fine. So,
I'm just tired of talking about it and dealing with it. It's been
yeah,
since March 2020, and here it is,
yeah,
still hanging around
yeah. Here we are, still thinking about it and
like
still.
anchovies on a pizza menu, just hanging around.
Hey, I like anchovies, so yeah, I don't know where that
Trying to find the
goes,
button
but
in
it's
this
fine.
call right now. Denise,
All
who's
right.
our guest today on the podcast?
All right. So we have Danny Stoller from Square Pie Guys in San Francisco. Him and his partner, Marc Schechter, have just opened their third location. And it's not just a third location, it is like a wowza huge location. So this
It's a
isn't.
show place.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it is literally uh, if you're if you're in North Beach and you are looking up at the skyline behind you, it's right in front
Mm-hmm.
of the Ghirardelli sign. Like it is right in front of everything.
Yeah.
It's a show place. Yeah, it definitely is. Um,
Not only is it beautiful, but for those listening to the podcast, if they go check out the Square Pie Guys Instagram page,
Drool
you'll
all
see the
day.
food is stunningly beautiful.
Yeah, if you want to learn food photography, what you should be doing on your Instagram to make people drool, make people crave your food, Square Pie Guys is somebody you should follow because they definitely have me drooling like every day. Every day I'm liking their posts and going, oh my goodness, can I have this right now? And I can't because they're across the country from me.
Denise, here's a question for you. Now, we're going to get into this in the interview. Daniel will talk about it, but can we call their pizza Detroit style pizza? I know they do.
Yeah. I mean, okay, here's my thing on okay, so you have a style, you have Detroit, you have New York, Detroit, Chicago, you have like all these different styles around the country. People do apply their own take on
Mm-hmm.
it. So you're going to see how they differ from Detroit. And so
Right.
the Detroit traditionalist would say that's not Detroit, that's just
Correct.
somebody's creation. It is what it is. But for me, like if I want to explain to somebody what their style is, because I want to explain it in the magazine or I want to explain, to somebody that needs to go try it, I'm going to describe it as a Detroit style and say, hey, they took their own liberties on certain aspects.
Look, people have been taking liberties on Neapolitan now for a very long time, and we'll call it Neapolitan, right? Or
Yeah.
something to that effect, because the traditional Neapolitan guidelines are very strict, and some people have discovered that if they operate slightly outside those boundaries, they can produce a product that they find works better for them. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what has happened here. If we operate slightly outside what the purist would strictly define as Detroit style pizza, if we make a few tweaks, we have a product that we like better and that our customers appreciate.
Yeah, and let's face it, Detroit is one of those styles where it is so outside of the box for what pizza consumers are used to. First, it's square. Second, it's sauce on top. Second, it's using a cheese that not a lot of people are familiar with, brick. So in that, you're going to have a little bit of variation on what people decide to
Mm-hmm.
do in those veins. And so those liberties that they're taking now, I don't know if you want to try to call it a new Detroit or I don't know. We're going to have to ask the guys at Buddies what they call that change up the style a little bit. That's what I think we should do. We should ask Wes. Wes will tell us.
Fair enough. Let's do that.
All right. Well, I think we should just get Danny on. He's got a lot to talk about because he is kind of that ops side of things. So opening 3 stores, he's got so much knowledge in the operations, the system. So if you're looking to grow, this is an episode you need to make sure you pin and listen to.
Absolutely. Let's get Daniel in here.
Hear that? That's the sound of a pizza being made with delicious Baccio cheese. For the past decade, Baccio has provided customers exceptional Italian pizza cheese with its signature kiss of buffalo milk. With a superior melt, endless stretch, and a rich, creamy taste beyond compare, Baccio is honored to celebrate this 10-year anniversary with all of its partners. Schedule a demonstration at bacciocheese.com/hotslice to learn more. Pizza's your legacy. Build it with Baccio. Looking to grow your pizzeria or restaurant? Then you'll want to try the power of a cloud-based POS system. With Hunger Rush, you'll get everything you need. This fully integrated restaurant management system allows you to easily streamline operations, accelerate the delivery process, and grow your business through Hunger Rush 360 marketing. And it's so easy to use. Want AI-powered text ordering? It's built in. Need to track orders? No problem. Schedule a personalized demo at hungerrush.com today. Performance Food Service is proud to deliver high-quality products, innovative technology, and custom operational solutions to restaurants of all sizes across the country. The flagship division of Performance Food Group, with deep roots in the restaurant industry, Performance Food Service has been the exclusive distributor of the Roma family of brands for more than 65 years. This signature relationship has allowed Performance Food Service to become a leader in the pizza and Italian segment of food service nationwide.
Daniel, what's a business climate like right now for you?
What is the business climate like right now for me? I think it's a really interesting time. I think we came out of probably the 2.5 hardest years you could be in this industry, at least in the time I've been in it. We're looking at some kind of a recession. Whether or not it is sustained, we will kind of remains to be seen. And I think what we've seen is in certain segments in our industry, recessions are not catastrophic. And I think folks have seen opportunities in recessions or have been able to survive, maybe even thrive. So I think we're cautiously optimistic, as we always are, and just really interested to see what the next 18 months holds. It's fascinating, and I think we're really excited with the team we have to get through it together.
And you say you're coming off of this tumultuous time, but in that, you have just opened up a very large space. I mean, you have expanded. Tell us about this new location that you have going, which Jeremy, I tell you what, I snuck to it while we were in San Francisco.
Oh, you did?
On a sneak tip. Yeah.
Nice.
Because it was near where we were staying in San Francisco. So I got to see it. And it is a beautiful spot, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. So we opened our 3rd location just shy of 3 years before the anniversary of our first location. So 3 and 3 feels good. It's a nice little tagline. I'm getting it printed on shirts and hats. No, I'm just kidding.
I love that.
So the original plan for Square Pie Guys, we had a pop-up, and, we had a lot of fun with that. And we loved being able to go out to, we had a Thursday night, Friday night kind of standing pop-up, and then we would go pop up at breweries and bars. And I live in the east side of the East Bay. So like east of the Bay in San Francisco. And we always wanted to have a big sprawling sort of beer garden, little pizza shack and a lot of outdoor seating. And, a lot of things shook out where that didn't happen for our first 2 locations. And in many ways, it didn't really happen for our 3rd location. But what we were able to do was secure this awesome location on a waterfront. And we have a parklet. We have about 1,200 square feet of outdoor seating. And I think a lot of that is a learning from COVID. So we have this location that is beautiful. It's gorgeous. Denise was telling me that she watched the outdoor swimmers, open water swimmers, which I'm super excited to try one day if I get a chance. And this location happens to be sort of strategically located for delivery. So, famously, San Francisco, despite being in California, gets cold at random times when you're not really expecting it. You don't want to go sit outside on the waterfront. So we have a location that's sort of set up in a way where if that happens, you can order delivery, and it's surrounded by neighborhoods that sort of fit our kind of target consumers demographics. So this 3rd location it's big, but it's big because we're prepared to do both dine in and take out, hopefully very well at very high volume.
Mhm.
And it just so happens that the space, because of how it's laid out, creates a lot of opportunities for dine-in.
Yeah.
We also claimed about 25% or 30% of the indoor space back for kitchens. So we stole
Wow.
back from diners, and we put in counters so that we could expedite to go orders, because what we learned during COVID was it's not just the space in the oven, it's not just the
Mhm.
space in the walk-in or the make line. It's like when you're stacking up a busy Friday night, you need to put boxes somewhere while you're waiting for the other pizzas, where you're waiting for the guests to pick it up. So it was a super fun experience, and I think it's a distillation of what I always like to say. I haven't learned anything, but I think I've learned a little bit. But in 3 years of learning, I think it's a distillation of that.
Absolutely. And 3 and 3, that is a huge feat.
Yeah, it
Was
really
it
is.
something that you had planned from the get-go to do 3 and 3, or is it something that opportunity landed and you just seized that moment?
I think it's a combination. I mean, there was a point where I had looked at some of these other kind of quickly scaling brands, and they did it with venture capital money, and they did it with lower volume stores, and not during a
Mhm.
pandemic. But there was one point when you're so optimistic. It's like, oh, we're going to open our first store that will open 2 the second year. We'll have 5 stores in 3 years. And
Yeah.
when I look back on that now, learning what I've learned and like the people that we've worked with, it's just like, that would have been crazy. And I think it would have set us up for not building a great base for growth. So there was a time when if you said, oh, you only opened 3 in 3 years, that's slow. Now on the other end of it, I think Mark and I would both say it was the perfect speed. And it was intentional. I mean, we like the idea of growth. Pizza is a concept that if you set it up for success, can scale relatively quickly. And that's always
Mhm.
been the goal. But 5 in 3 years is a bit much, at least for us.
What did you discover? Obviously, there were myriad challenges going from 1 store to 2, no question. But as you grew, what did you discover as some of the largest challenges or obstacles to successfully growing?
I think the biggest thing is that, so I think we all know culture is the most important
Mhm.
thing for an organization.
Mhm.
Culture scales, but the benefits of culture don't scale. So like you have a pizza shop, and
Yeah.
you're not a jerk, and you provide people with what they need to be successful, and you treat them with respect,
Yeah.
and they make really good food. Like that's just kind of how it works.
Mhm.
You can squeeze the benefits of that up to 2 stores. But once you start getting beyond 3 stores, you really have to systematize a lot of it. You can't just rely on culture. So I've always said, like, we can rely on culture to a certain point, but then it becomes training and systems. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess my
Yeah.
point is, like, we had amazing people, and those amazing people sort of created the systems as they went. And we're like, that works, that doesn't work. We tweaked it. Once you get to 3 stores, you want all 3 stores to run basically the same way. So it's not just as easy as like having an awesome GM that does a great job with their team. And we have that, but we also have to give them the tools to make sure that if you go to Oakland or you go to Soma or you go to the new location, you can reasonably expect it's going to be about the same.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I think for me, what's been so hard is that there was a time when it was my job and Mark's job to like
Yeah.
be the people that built those systems. But there's coming a time when now we're not even the people that get to do that. We have to support
Right.
a team to put those systems in place. And that has been by far the biggest learning of my entire career. And not just Square Pie, my entire career feels like, oh, wow, I need to drastically shift how I'm approaching this if we're going to
Yeah.
continue to grow and succeed.
I
Well,
think
and with
that's
2 of
the.
you, so when you went to a second location,
Mhm.
you could still, one of you 2 could be present anytime you wanted to. When you go to 3 locations, right? 2 of you,
Nope.
it's impossible. How did you overcome that hurdle?
So I think that's a good point, because people would always ask, like, so Danny, are you in Oakland and Mark's in Soma? And from a pretty early from an early stage in our business, we had pretty clear delineations, and we're both heavily involved. I mean, Mark is the biggest pizza nerd in the world, so like
Yeah.
he's always going to have an opinion about pizza and how to do it. I have a background in restaurant operations and was like a fine dining chef at one point. And I'm super kind of driven by this like bigger, broader goal. And
Mhm.
so, we struggled a lot as early restaurant owners of like learning when we should let go or how we could
Yeah.
delegate. So when we opened our second store, it wasn't like, hey, Danny, you keep Soma, or you stay at Soma and Mark goes to Oakland. It was like, well, we have a GM at Soma. we need to hire a GM at Oakland. And I think we were very fortunate to have put that in place so that there was less of that hurdle of like, when we open new stores, we always need a GM. What we learned with Oakland was that we don't hire the GM 3 months before. We should hire the GM like 6 months before and get them really dialed into the system and like have them train. So, you know, there's always things that you learn. But I think that because we had that sort of delineation and because we're able to create those like structures, it allows us to think like it becomes more plug and play versus like, you know, having an owner in the restaurant. So it's hard. You know, you have to let go, which is the hardest thing in the world.
You know, some of the things that I kind of wanted to go back to when you were talking about the culture versus what you needed to systemize, what were some of those key things that you had to systemize from your culture in order to really make sure it was happening on the ground level?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is how you interact with a guest. And, you know, we always like to say we hire for personality and train the skills. And I think that's really true. But within that band, there's sort of language that you can use or approaches to certain de-escalations that without that guidance might not happen. So the one thing that we did from basically day one was, hopefully this doesn't bite us in the butt to say it out loud, but like if you email our store email or info@squarepieguys, or there was a Yelp review and you had an experience that wasn't to our standards, we would own it. We'd be like, look, we're really sorry. We'd generally offer a refund and we would give you a gift card so we could de-risk coming back. And that is not the traditional approach for a lot of restaurants. Like they're very averse to giving away things for free. And I get it. And people can totally take advantage of that. But it was super important to us that we gave our GMs those tools. So we gave them email templates. We gave them sort of like the understanding of how to handle this given situation. You know, we call them SOPs. Now it's expanded to sort of like training guides and manuals, but it's like, if this happens, here's how you're going to respond. Like you can choose the language that you have to. Can you hear it? Said my headphones.
It just went a little funky on you.
Anyways,
I'll let you restart that a little.
Yeah. So effectively, like when we started handing off some of those guest interactions and guest problem solving, we really wanted to give our team a set of SOPs and expectations. And the language was sort of there to their discretion, but the actual refunds, you know, comps, that was all sort of built into a system. Beyond that, you know, it's just continuing to build those, like from a food perspective, if a pizza isn't to our standards, you know, is that subjective? Yes and no, but there's certain things you can identify that make a pizza not to our standards. So it's like, hey, look, if the pepperoni looks like this, for whatever reason, that's a no-go. You know, we struggled a lot with learning exactly how to dial in, how to teach, how to know if a piece of dough was ready to cook. And then if it came out of the oven over or underproofed, how to catch that. And those are those things that like, you can look at how everyone else in the world does it, but only your operation is going to know exactly how you do it for you. And it's kind of fun. It's like this like 3D chess of like, well, how do we make a picture that shows you exactly what you need to know if you're not like a trained pizzaiolo? So it's a really exciting challenge.
That sounds fun.
Talk about your pizza a minute. It is just visually, when I see photographs of it,
mouth watering.
It is
mouth watering.
Your pizza is very attractive. But so just talk about the style and why you do it the way you do it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, the visual appeal is a big part of it. You know, in early days, we talked about how we wanted to be Instagrammable, and, you know, so much credit goes to Marc for how much time and effort he puts into the Instagrammability and continuing to Instagram. I mean, that guy is a social media guru. You should start an agency.
I drool over the pizza at least once a day. At least once a day.
Thank you so much. You know, we do our version of Detroit style pizza. So it started with this idea that Detroit style needed to be on the West Coast and it needed to be done well. We had a pop-up, and some of the earliest pizzas we had on our menu stay on our menu to this day. We tweaked it a little bit through the pop-up. You know, when we had a pop-up, we were making it by hand in the basement of a bar. Totally not permitted, but it was food safe. It just was not a place where you technically are supposed to be making pizza. In our version of Detroit style, we realized that we didn't like the sort of the visual appeal of the sauce on top. We also didn't like the flavor profile of that baked sauce, like with the sauce on top, because it cooks a lot more on top of the cheese. So we broke one of the biggest tenets of Detroit style pizza really early on. And I think in some ways that made it more approachable and more easy to digest, I guess pun intended, for the West Coast consumer who didn't really know Detroit style pizza. We don't use brick cheese. We use amazing grande cheese from Wisconsin. We have a cheddar cheese edge around the pan. So one of the most labor intensive things we do is you sauce, and then you literally take your hand and you line the pan with cheddar cheese. Then you put the under the cheese toppings, cheese on top. It adds at least like a minute to the build process.
So that's how you get that beautiful crown, right? The crown that you've got going around there. Beautiful.
Exactly. So with our oven and the temperature we bake at, the grande just comes out too dark. So having that fattier, sort of like more orange cheese really creates that, like, I don't want it black and I don't want it blonde. I want that perfect gold, we used to call it GBD, golden brown and delicious. And I think that visual appeal, you can look at the side of it and you see that layer of crispy cheddar, maybe a little bit of sauce underneath it, it kind of seeped out to the pan, and then that like crunchy kind of GBD crust as well.
There's certainly a sweet spot. If it gets too done, it's just gross. It just is. You've got to hit that seam, that sweet spot. Otherwise, if it gets black, it just get it.
The
it's funny because
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, you look at pictures of like tradition. So I don't know why I'm using quotes of traditional Detroit style pizza, and some of it looks really dark.
Yeah,
and I think when we were first making it, we were, we didn't have this childhood reference. A lot of it was based on pictures and books and articles we were reading, and it's like, is it supposed to be this dark? Like, is that traditional? Does that look right? Like, it doesn't look right to us. So that tweaking, a lot of it was based on just like, does it look good? Does it taste good? And now we think it obviously looks good and tastes good too. So.
And using the cheddar versus using white cheddar, that's something that I don't see a lot when people change up Detroit. I haven't seen them use the cheddar versus, I see them use the white cheddar a lot. But to use standard cheddar and have that coloring, that's pretty cool.
Thank you. I mean, I honestly don't know if we did that intentionally or if that's what we got available from our vendor when we were testing it. But I'll say I'm actually in my mom's dining room right now.
Yeah.
I'm from Seattle. We're up here visiting for a couple days.
Nice.
I'm a Pacific Northwest boy. I fondly remember going to the Tillamook Cheese Factory, and I don't know if you've been to the Tillamook Cheese Factory. It's quite the experience. And so there's something about using Tillamook cheddar that feels like a sort of, and Mark lived in Seattle, he's been to the factory. It feels like this sort of melding of backgrounds, like where you're kind of making New York style sauce and it's Detroit style pizza, and then this like Pacific Northwest kind of cherished cheese is the edge. So yeah, I like the cheddar, but I honestly don't remember if we did it on purpose or it's just a happy accident that we then really liked.
Yeah, I gotcha. You guys are big on doing seasonal and collaborations. Kind of, speak on what you're doing with that. And, we're getting ready to go into fall. So are you doing anything kind of unique or different when it comes to fall?
So I think the fall collab is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I think also I owe it to Mark to not quite let that one slip yet, but I promise when we're ready to announce it, you'll see. I'm really excited about the person we're doing with. I'm really excited about kind of what it's going to mean. I think we're going to actually refresh one of our main components of our pizzas. I think we're like redoing our hot honey as part of this collaboration for something that's a little bit more to our taste. We've been using Mike's Hot Honey since we opened, and we love Mike and we love the brand. We love Mike's Hot Honey.
Yeah.
And, it's been 3 years. We're tinkerers. One day someone said, let's put this thing in that. And it's like, oh, wow, that tastes really good. So a little bit of excitement coming, but I want to keep that under wraps.
Yeah. So how hard is it to do collaborations? Like, hard is it to line these up? Are you doing direct? Are you working direct with these folks, or are you working through your distributor? Like, how are you setting up these collaborations?
It really varies. And I would say Mark spends a lot of his time either thinking about or trying to, make that happen.
Nice.
The first one was at our pop-up. Big Vaughn is a radio jockey on KMEL, which is like a big, Billboard 100 kind of hip-hop station in the Bay. And KMEL records right down the street from the pop-up. So Vaughn used to get off his show and he'd come in with his buddies, and he's a big guy, and he would order what used to be called the Mean Green Sausage Machine.
and he'd say, "Hey,
I
take
love
the
it.
it's white sauce, it's Italian sausage, broccoli, and Mike's hot honey." And he'd say, "Hey, can you take the broccoli off and add pepperoni?" So he took the one sort of vegetables, like, get that out of here. It's a great
Yeah.
pizza. To this day, it's our second best seller. It has been basically since we opened.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was our first collab. So when we opened our restaurant, we're like, well, we got to put Big Vaughn on the menu. We're texting him, we're like, "Hey Vaughn, can we put your name on the menu?" He's like, "Yeah, of course." So that was our first sort of attempt at that collab. And then Jeremy Lin, I think, was our first sort of really high visibility one. Jeremy Lin was just, he grew up in the Bay Area. He would come in and he would, this is funny. This reveals a certain dynamic, but we had said that we don't do substitution. So it's like, you can create your own, or you can order off the menu, but we don't tweak anything on the menu. And Mark and my GM are huge fans of Jeremy Lin. So under the radar, there were modifications happening with this. What a scandal. And then one day, we were like, well, maybe Jeremy would do a pizza with us. And so we ended up doing this tasting, and we sort of had a hypothesis of, we wanted the pizza to represent what he wanted, but we didn't want to like go too far away from what we normally do. There's this awesome tasting. And then the press in the Bay loves Jeremy Lin. So what we saw was, we started putting this press release out, and like Eater was like, "Oh my God, can we talk to Jeremy?" Like the Chronicle got excited. And it was like, wow, so we're going to help. And we also had a charity component. So it was like each pizza, 3% of sales were going to charity. Jeremy Lin matched it. And it was like, okay, so we can do really good. We can make a fun, exciting pizza that we know is going to sell because people like the name.
Yeah.
And we're going to get some attention from folks all around, in this case, it was national. It was like a win-win-win.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of was this like light bulb of like, well, we should continue this. So some of them happen organically. The one for fall actually is a local kind of food celebrity.
Nice.
Well, I won't even gender them. And they have like posted us a couple times. And this one was interesting because they're at the stage of their career where they have an agent like kind of managing the relationship. So the first call we had was with, two folks sitting in an office, not the person. But we've kind of continued to evolve that, and I'm so excited to see it happen. And it's been amazing. And I think it speaks to how well Mark does a job of kind of creating that excitement on Instagram. People are excited to be associated with us, and we're obviously very excited to be associated with them.
Yeah. Wow. What do you, now that you've got the third location open, what are you looking forward to now? Like what, as operations guy, what are you, what's on your mind moving forward now into the end of the year, into the beginning of 2023? How am I even saying 2023 already? But here we are.
It's coming.
I mean, honestly, it feels like it's 2025 sometimes.
Exactly.
It goes so fast. I think the biggest thing is, we've hired a director of operations. We're kind of poised to continue to scale. Looking forward, I think it's really refining those systems. So to the point, like the amount of time we spend on collaborations is amazing. How do we systematize some of that? Like, how do we build a system around that? Like, how do we do it without losing the je ne sais quoi that makes it so special? And how do we continue to become a national brand? And, in some ways, I think there's some national recognition in the pizza space. I mean, obviously you're in Louisville and you snuck into a restaurant while we weren't there. So that's happening. But our goal is to become a beloved national brand. Like, we would love to become a Domino's that hasn't necessarily, well, I don't want to speak ill of any other operator, but we want to make sure that we retain our culinary credibility and the sort of high level of quality as we continue to scale. It's really important to us. So looking forward to 2023. I mean, we want to open more stores in the Bay, and then we're ready to look at a new market. So we love the idea of opening in LA. Obviously, I'm from Seattle. We see a lot of similarities between parts of the Bay and what Seattle's become now. And so just continuing to set up a brand and an operation and a corporate structure that is ready to take on that sort of new challenges is the look forward for us.
We don't have Detroit here in Louisville. I'm just saying we don't have any Detroit. Well, I think we have maybe one.
We have a large national chain that does
chain.
Detroit pizza.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Is it Jets?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I mean, obviously Emmy is a direct competitor in some ways, but I'm surprised they haven't looked at Louisville yet, given what they've been doing.
No, we do have an Emmy. It's pretty new, and it's in kind of a hot area with with very little parking, so we don't get to it much.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I should take note. If we open
No.
in Louisville, we got to have a big parking lot or underground parking.
You're in a driving part of the country, so yeah,
Street parking won't cut it in Louisville, right?
Okay, good to
Yeah.
know. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up in Seattle and Shoreline, where it's like, yeah, you got to have a parking lot or you don't go. Like
Yeah.
people love to talk about how hard it is to park. I didn't have this whole
Yeah.
week. I have not had a single issue finding parking, but I remember growing up, there was a lot of conversation about how hard it was to find parking. So
Yeah.
it's part of the culture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Louisville, if there's nowhere to park, people will not stop. Period.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of the kiss of death sometimes, depending on what type of operation they have. So we'll close out on this question, and that is, what's something exciting that you are seeing in the industry that you cannot wait to kind of jump onto?
I think that's a great question. I mean, there's so much happening right now.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, for me and for our values, like our first value is team first. And I think what we've seen through the pandemic is I hopefully a true shift towards being a little bit more employee centric. And I say that as someone who came up in the industry, and I remember training was like being told to make a recipe and then getting yelled at because it wasn't how the chef wanted it done. But I wasn't given a recipe. I was just told to make it.
Sink or swim.
Yeah. And I think, what we're seeing is in certain states where the cost of living has stayed lower, we're seeing cooks and servers finding some pay parity and finding a world where you can make a career out of this industry in a big way again.
Yeah.
That to me has always been a huge goal. And just seeing the changes happen through the pandemic, it's heartening. I would love it if, people can start working at Square Pie Guys and end up a multimillionaire because they become a regional manager or whatever it is. I would also love it if, dishwashers could pay their way through college or get help with college. And I think seeing that happen in the industry, I mean, I left restaurants. I left restaurants because the hours were bad and the working conditions were bad. And particularly in fine dining, the pay was terrible for the like skill set that was expected. And I came back partially because I think that with pizza or with fast casual or with technologically enabled restaurants, there is an opportunity to fix a lot of that. I can't wait. I can taste it. Pun intended.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've just got a wealth of knowledge that's just going to flow through from you. So I appreciate you, just sharing your ideas.
My pleasure. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Daniel, thank you. You've got lofty goals. We're big fans of what you are doing. So keep up the great work.
I'll see you in the parking lot of Square Pie Guys, Louisville.
There you go.
I love it. Come on. I'll see you later. Bye.
See ya.